Here we go. So welcome to Lisa and Michael Save the World. I'm Michael Kraft, photographer.
And I'm Lisa D'Amico, artist. And this is Ararat El Rawi. He is a kick-ass chef, and he's an art collector, art appreciator, and just an art aficionado as far as we're concerned. And we are so excited that he's with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And so excited that we just had a meal that was cooked
Yes.
by Ararat.
Delish.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, it was very good.
Yeah.
Well, we all discussed Johnny Depp movies.
Yes, Crybaby.
We love Johnny.
Everyone knows Crybaby. John Waters, right? Johnny Depp.
Iggy Pop.
The two great Johns.
And that was not even planned. He even mentioned it just like, 20 minutes ago?
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, oh my God, I have that shirt for our episode. So there you go. It's amazing, right?
It is amazing. Michael, you look like you're 6 feet tall.
You know what? The sun in Florida has made me grow, I
have
guess.
to sit straighter. Okay.
I'm moving to Florida.
Yeah, I'll go there with you.
I'm also cold here. Anyway, so since we have a special guest on this episode, you will not hear us babble on about our influences, art holes, and art history. We leave that up to our guest. So what should we start with, Lisa?
Let's just dive in. Let's go art holes first, because I'm sure that Ararat has an opinion.
Do you have an opinion?
Doesn't everybody?
So who's your art hole?
My
or art holes?
Well, tell them a little bit what art hole means.
Well, art hole is a nice way of saying asshole. in the art world, someone who maybe, puts a damper on art.
Or situation, maybe, that kind of...
Or in my case, a lot of times, ruins art, like a 5-year-old.
Well, sometimes I think, I enjoy Banksy. I like, the things that he does and, the fact that he's graffiti and, stands up to that culture. But the one thing that I don't particularly necessarily like about him is his attitude towards, the fact that somebody will tag over his stuff or, something like that. And it's like, you want your stuff really, really protected and you want this and that, but the whole world of graffiti is about tagging and covering up and, doing this and that. So if you want to be in this world, this kind of comes with it, so, you're putting yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there. So if you want to do that, then that's how it's got to be, I think. So don't have a bad attitude because somebody tagged your stuff or covered it up or anything like that. It's like you're a graffiti artist and, this and that. But on the other hand, I love the work that he does. I love the stuff that he does and, everything like that. It's just just take it easy and, have a better attitude towards it because this is the culture, that you decided to be in,
Yeah.
So, that and, I think we were discussing this earlier too. Just things, anybody that just stay true to what you do, and that's my whole thing. Don't do something that, resembles art and call it art because then you're not really, doing anything. You're not really being, creative in that sense. You're not using all the creative imagination that you have or the creative imagination that an artist has to have. And again, not to piss on other people, but it's not the hardest thing in the world to take a record album, spray painted gold, and then get a stencil of Michael Jackson or Prince and, spray paint over that. And it's like, the 7th grade, be more creative than that. There's so much other things you could be doing and, challenge yourself and, your pictures are all different, you're a photographer and this and that, but look at all the subject matters that you do and all the different ways that you post people and all the different things that you do. You don't stick to one simple thing and just I just took these pictures, it's not, there's thought behind it and, there's creativity. You can watch the growth in your work when you see it and, just that kind of stuff. We were just talking about you work in a style for so long. You personally, Lisa, and then you change and you do a different style of something, but you're doing it. You're changing. And it's the same with me cooking. You cook something, once you get it done, you don't want to keep cooking the same damn dish over and over. You want to move on to something. I know I can make it anytime. I know I can pull it out, but I've done that. I visited it. Let me try something else. And
I've explored it as far as I can take it.
So that's my feeling on art. It's like stuff like that. Those are the things I don't basically other than that, it's like even the people that want to make money off of it, or stuff like that. I think we were talking about Jeff Koons once, about yeah, okay, you made a lot of money and, you know, the big balloons and, you know, this and that, but there's other things, you know, that are more appealing to me, I think, you know.
Moving on and growing.
Yeah.
Moving on and growing, right?
It's art.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So,
What's next?
influences. Let's
Yeah.
go with influences.
What art influence? Past, present, doesn't matter.
I've always been influenced by art. You know, I mean, my aunt took me to a Calder exhibit when I was 8 years old. You know, never been. You know, it was my first exposure to something like that.
That's very cool. You had
Yeah,
a cool aunt.
of course. Yeah, definitely. She was a fine arts major, so there were always books open when I'd come home. There'd be, you know, art books open. Even if you walk by, you know, you'd always glance at what was on the thing or this and that. But you know, she took me to Calder, and I remember seeing the cow, you know, that he had made out of, you know, and seeing the sculptures and the balance. And you know, that guy used negative space better than most people use regular space. You know, and so really, really phenomenal. You know?
Yes.
So you know, as I grew older, I realized that, you know, that kind of stuck with me, was going to that exhibit. You know, it's an easy one to say, the Impressionists. Everybody likes the Impressionists, you know. And as I grew older, what I realized that I like about the Impressionists was the basically the fact that they were kind of giving the middle finger to the world of art at the time that they did it, because they came around and they broke all these rules, you know. And if you look at it today, and you might say, oh, muted colors, oh, you know, what was breaking the rules about, you know, the statues or the, you know, some of the things they did. But it's like, what I mean by that, it's like, you know, you look at Degas, you know, it's like, you know, nothing was centered. It was off in the bottom of the left-hand corner. Her leg wasn't on the screen the whole way. It was, you know, something like that, you know, and it's like, it wasn't centered. It wasn't in the middle of it. You know, you had Gauguin, he's just painting these Tahitian women and, you know, stuff like that. And so, you know, the rest of the art world was like, who are these people and what is this movement that do? But they stuck to their guns, you know, and because of that, look at what we have today. Everybody likes the Impressionists and the Manet and the Monet, and you go to the museum and you can buy all this stuff and, you know, this and that. But at the time they were doing it, you know, I think it was just kind of a big middle finger to everybody else, because they had to really stand on their own and prove what they were doing was right. It drove Van Gogh crazy, you know, I mean, you know, as far as, you know, trying to find their acceptance into it and, you know, this and that. So, you know, the Impressionists are neat because they're the Impressionists and we all kind of have our favorite, just like a, you know, but on the other hand, you know, that was the other thing about it. And then I also like the American artists, you know, Andy Warhol, I just, I mean, man, I mean, you know, they influenced, they just, a whole movement, you know, I mean, he can't get lost in the bookstore end of the gallery and buy the Maryland coasters and the Elvis dishes and, you know, the deck of cards, you know, with the soup can on it and stuff like that, because the guy just did so much more and he influenced the way we look in the world today so much, you know. And not to keep rambling on, but, you know, just as an example of this, and I've told you this before, that the effect that he had, that we maintain today, that you can see the effect that you can trace it back to him, whether you want to accept this fact or not, it's the truth. Because I was with my friend about a year ago and we were walking and we saw a guy and he had on a New York Jet football shirt and it had the Grateful Dead skull on it. So it's like, oh, he's a Grateful Dead fan and he loves the New York Jets. You know, you put these two things together and you can basically get the Grateful Dead head with any of your sport team. It doesn't matter, hockey, football, whoever your team is, you can have a shirt like that made up. These are two separate entities that come together. And you can trace that back to Andy Warhol when he did the Maryland, Lifesaver Maryland series that he did, because he took that image of Maryland that everybody loved, that one that you always saw in the newspapers, you know, that famous image because everybody loves that. This is the image of her that we want. And he also had a theory, and he said everybody has a favorite flavor of Lifesaver candy. So he painted the back of the Lifesaver flavors, and he put that image of Maryland, and he said, now you can enjoy your favorite flavor of Lifesaver candy with your favorite picture of Marilyn Monroe. How much different is that than the Grateful Dead had with your sports team? Your favorite rock and roll band with your favorite sport team, you can trace it right back to that, and you cannot tell me that the guy didn't influence the world just with something like that. So, you know, and it's also American, you know, when you look at stuff like that, it's something that we as Americans, you have to be proud of being an American. That's something we gave the world, like jazz, you know, I mean, it wasn't classical, it wasn't this and that. Jazz is a very American thing. Pop art is a very, very American thing too, you know.
Amen.
Right.
Jasper Johns, you know, painting flat, no shadows, you know, stuff like that. This whole new thing, just pretty much in the vein of what the Impressionists were doing, you know, just something completely different, but they stuck to their guns and took the laughter, took the heat, took the, it's all this and that, and, you know, look at today's world, you know, can't buy it. You know.
I love it. I feel like we've done art history as well, all in one question. Don't you?
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. And it was some art history that I knew.
I'm so proud.
Hey.
I'm so proud.
And here we
on
are.
So many levels tonight. This is like amazing.
Actually, through our shows and you, of course, and our guests, I have learned so much more about art.
Educating Michael.
Yes.
We all learn. I go to the museum with her, and we stand there and we just stare at something, and we're both muttering, not to each other, but just to ourselves. And I'm just listening to Elisa say, look at the color, look at this, look how he cut the paper, look how he, this and that. And she's talking to herself. And everything she's saying, I'm listening and learning. And it's like, yeah. We can all take from that, and that's the other great thing about art is through discussion, you find out things and you might like and you might, and the energy of that creates things, I think,
I think we'd cry. So great.
Okay, so since we kind of covered art history, how about I throw a curveball in here?
Okay, go ahead.
With
a last question.
With a last question. And I don't know if there's going to be a lot to it or not, but is there art that influences you, or is there art that influences you being a chef, or I mean, is there something that does it influence it? Do you find I mean, obviously what you do is an art in itself. So was there something that stands out?
Philosophy about food, I really believe that it's the most personal thing I can think of to do for anybody, much like you can take a picture and you can paint a painting or something like that. There's nothing more personal. I can't run a race for you. I can't box in the ring for you, but I can cook for you. And it's very personal. So that's the most personal thing I can think of to do for you. And I also believe that of all the arts that we have out there, I do believe that cooking and food is the only form of art that we have that we participate in, that we need to survive. I mean, if you never heard a song, you're not going to die. If you never saw a play, I mean, you shouldn't. You should always do these things. But if you didn't hear an orchestra, if you didn't do it, you're going to be okay. But if you don't eat, you're not going to survive. So that element of food, I think definitely, when we participate in that, we cook together, we chop together, we look at the pasta we made tonight. We all did it together, and so we participate in that, and we need that to eat. And when you look at art, you look at food, and if you're really looking at it the right way, if you're not looking at diner stuff, if you're not looking at these pretentious guys that really don't know what they're doing, because food is definitely art. And the chefs that taught me, Andrew Zimmern was an art history major.
Was he?
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of the first males to graduate Vassar College, and we would have these in-depth discussions, and I learned so much of him because he was so much more than a chef. And he had that approach to his plate. He used to make fun of guys that came out of culinary school because he used to say, I know, high and in the middle of the plate, because that's how they teach you to plate. Keep it centered and build it high, and keep it in the center of the plate. And I would watch the way he plated his food. He plated his food. He used negative space like Alexander Calder on his dishes. I mean, he would create these things, and just the way he put them, and sometimes it wouldn't be in the center, sometimes it'd be off, and stuff like that. But there was so much thought involved in the way the dish actually looked on the plate, to begin with. And the second thing, like he taught me when we were learning to cook and learning to cook the proper way, is if you really look at food and art, if you look at it that way, he used to tell me that, when you work in art, he said you either work together or you work in contrast with art, and that's that. And he goes, and food is the same way. You either work together or you work in contrast. But when you're putting a dish together, you have to have that contrast, or you have to work together. Working together, you get things like mushrooms, asparagus, artichokes. They're all woody, kind of has that same kind of flavor. And you work in contrast, you're going to put sun-dried tomatoes in there, something candy and sweet, some of the, cross alongside of that. And just like art, there's contrast, and then you have this contrast, and you create this dish. And I think that if you use those elements and all of that, that's art in itself. Just the theory of it, putting behind it, And like I said, even if you're just plating it, it's one thing. But when you watch a real chef and a real guy that's really aware of these things like Andrew, and you watch how he plates on the dish, and the way he puts the sauce, and the way in the negative space of the way the dish looks, and just beautiful, beautiful things. I watched him make fresh homemade mozzarella and wrapped it around the tomato. By the time he was done with this whole complete dish, he made it look like bacon and eggs. Sliced the mozzarella with the tomato inside, and it was just this beautiful, beautiful dish. And you just by cooking, and that's just pure art, So it's definitely an influence, because you have to think of it when you're cooking. Don't just go and I think this sounds good, and put it in there and this and that. It's like you got to put a little thought of it, just the same way an artist would. And if you're plating properly, you're going to plate the way an artist would paint a dish too. So definitely, art has a lot to do with food if you're doing it in the right way,
I figured so. I mean, because it does. I mean, when you look at certain, chefs, or when you see on TV the way that things are, even like, of course, I'm bringing up cakes. Everything has become like a work of art. Whether it's food, dessert, everything is,
But it should still have those components in it. It's not just making it look like it, or this and that. It's like have to have that whole package of and then just doing that, and not just. If I hear one more chef tell me my food is so sexy, then it's like I'm going to gut him like a fish. It's like just cook. I mean, look what a gastrique. It's vinegar and sugar reduction. It's the contrast of those two things. That you put it on the side, and like I said, if you plate it properly, you can really make a beautiful dish out of something like that. As long as you do the right things to accompany things and make sense on the dish. And not just, just like an artist, you wouldn't just put anything on. So.
This was great.
This was.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Yes,
this was a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun.
It's always great.
Yes.
It makes my soul feel good when we talk about art,
And we love we've had all kinds of different artists and people from
I know, I love
different, which, I love doing because you get so many different views.
Musicians and photographers, so much,
You know what? We do.
I'm sitting next to an artist and a photographer, both artists,
nice.
Keeps you in the game. Like when you hang out with people like that, that keeps your creativity going, and we thrive off of that. I think true artists do. They, you guys.
Oh,
I'm working, learning, and seeing.
All right.
Well,
thank you, everyone.
Stay tuned for more episodes of Lisa Michael Save the World.
Yes.
Also, be sure to follow Ararat.
Yes.
Please tell us your Instagram again, because
it's Little Armenia Cafe on Instagram.
Cool.
Yes.
And we're going to open the restaurant soon, so stay in touch.
Yeah, this probably will be, I'm not sure when this will air, but probably maybe closer to warmer weather.
Yeah.
And once warmer weather comes,
we'll have a restaurant for you to come and eat.
Yes.
And we can talk about art. And you can come and see Lisa's artwork hanging in my restaurant.
So follow along and follow us. Follow, like, subscribe, comment to our YouTube channel for all of our upcoming things.
Episodes, events, and so on. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Ararat.
Thank you. Peace, love, and joy, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.